responsibility is the price of greatness.
Thanks CUB for your part in an early savings plan for our children.
Good evening and welcome to the semi-final round of the 2022 Caribbean Union Bank Inter-Secondary School Impromptu Speaking Competition. We're delighted that you could join us this evening, and this evening's encounter promises to be an informative, intriguing, and keenly contested one. As you would recall, our judges would have deliberated and would have identified the 6 semi-finalists. Unfortunately, one of our semi-finalists from the Sonova Richards Academy had to withdraw. In consultation with the judges and our debate trainers, a unanimous decision was taken for the 7th place student from the preliminary round to join us for our semi-final round, and he will fill the 6th position this evening. So, in this evening's competition, we have 6 semi-finalists representing the Antigua Girls High School, the St. Anthony's Secondary School, the Trinity Academy, and Irene B. Williams Secondary. I will now introduce the students to you, and we begin with the Antigua Girls High School, Miss Kiwana Farrell. Also representing the Antigua Girls High School, Miss Josanne Charles. The Trinity Academy also has 2 representatives, Esther McKenzie and Esteban Feliz. St. Anthony's Secondary, Miss Anisia Shepard. And from the Irene B. Williams Secondary, Diego Bascom. I wish at this time to remind you of the rules which govern our semi-final round. Each participant would have selected the number which indicates the topic on which they will speak, as well as the position in which they will speak. Each participant is also given a maximum time of 3 minutes for mental preparation outside of studio. At the presentation, they have a maximum time of 2 minutes to make their presentation. In the semi-final round, there is a question and answer component. 1 student from each school represented here this evening will formulate questions, and at the end of the presentation made by each student, the questions are submitted to the judges. The judges will then choose 1 question from the submissions received and will pose the question to the speaker. The speaker will then have 1 minute in which to respond to that question. I wish to remind our participants that our timekeeper, Ms. Lynch, will signal the bell once during the presentations after 1 minute, and then will signal the bell twice once your 2 minutes would have expired. Your 2 minutes would have expired. In addition, for the question and answer component, the timekeeper will signal the bell once at the end of your 1 minute to respond to the question. The task for adjudicating this evening's encounter is in the hands of our capable and efficient panel of judges, consisting of Mr. Ursel Charles Jr., who is our Chief Judge and Deputy Director of News and Current Affairs at ABS TV Radio, Mr. Kadeem Joseph, Health Editor and News Producer at Observer News Co., and Ms. Sharon Herbert, Social Sector Planner within the Ministry of Social Transformation. I am your filling moderator, Ms. Alicia Knowles, and we will begin this evening's encounter after we would have heard from our sponsor, Caribbean Union Bank. Please stay with us.
With my busy schedule, a CUB debit and credit card is a must. It makes my life much easier. and one less thing I have to worry about.
Good evening and welcome back to the semi-final round of the 2022 Caribbean Union Bank Intersecondary School Impromptu Speaking Competition. We would have met our speakers and we would have been through our preliminaries, and so we are now ready to hear from each presenter. And our first speaker for this evening is Miss Kiwana Farrell from the Antigua Girls High School.
Good afternoon.
Good evening, Kiwana. Your topic is current global impacts of climate change are getting more severe and frequent. Current global impacts of climate change are getting more severe and frequent. You may begin.
Current global impacts of climate change are getting more severe and frequent. This has been confirmed and supported by many global news outlets recently. Also, firstly, our ozone layer is depleting. This is caused by the various car exhaustion, the different fumes that are coming from ships, etc. And this breaks down our ozone layer. Also, our icebergs are melting and it is causing damage around the world. This could also be shown in the sea world, whereas the organisms in the sea, such as coral reefs, etc., are becoming extinct, causing extinction in our species. As traveling increases, airplane usage, cars, etc., various things are causing the downgrade of our climate, such as deforestation and other things. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiwana. Kiwana made her presentation in a time of 1 minute and 25 seconds. Now, Kiwana, the judges will pose a question to you.
Good evening, Kiwana. Your question is, what can we do to stop climate change? Once more, what can we do to stop climate change?
Climate change can be stopped or slowed down once everyone does their part. This includes reducing the damages such as, for example, carpooling could reduce the amount of cars being used on the road, which lowers the amount of exhaust fumes that are being given out into the air. Also, we could have activities where we get everyone involved doing their part, such as beach cleanups, etc. Also, there are rules and laws implemented to prevent us from doing certain things that could damage the coral reefs, etc., such as not troubling them when we go snorkeling and those things. We could also reduce the amount of plastics we use, recycle, reduce, and reuse, which would help us to lower the amount of plastics that are being discarded around the place. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiwana. We will now move to our next speaker, also representing the Antigua Girls High School. Please welcome Miss Josiane Charles. Good evening, Josiane.
Good evening.
Your topic, outline 2 ways to deal with vagrancy in Antigua and Barbuda. Outline 2 ways to deal with vagrancy in Antigua and Barbuda. You may begin.
2 ways to deal with vagrancy in Antigua and Barbuda would be, firstly, to provide healthcare facilities that would cater to vagrants. In those healthcare facilities, there would be living rooms where they have a roof over their head. They could also put on various seminars that will inform the vagrants of the different ways that they could change their life. Another way would be to provide simple jobs for the vagrants that they won't need these skills and attributes as they would for other jobs. Simple jobs, for example, cleaning the roadside of the roads, or whether it be just cleaning the windows for businesses, and they would receive funds for that. With the funds that they gather, they could invest it into this, invest it into bettering their life. To elaborate on them providing simple jobs for them, they would provide clothing, the clothing necessary, and evidently, two ways to deal with the vacancy in Antigua and Barbuda would be to provide the necessary healthcare facilities to cater to vacancies and to provide simple jobs that they can acquire needed to better their life. Thank you.
Josine made her presentation in a time of 1 minute and 45 seconds.
Good day, Josine.
Good day.
And your question, do you think that the government of Antigua and Barbuda should be responsible for the vagrants within the country? Let me repeat again. Do you think the government of Antigua and Barbuda should be responsible for the vagrants within the country?
The governments of Antigua and Barbuda should be responsible for the vagrants as they are citizens too. You cannot discriminate against them based off their living situation because they are people too. So to answer that question, yes, I do believe that the government is responsible for the vagrants.
Thank you, Josine. We now move to our next speaker from the St. Anthony's Secondary School, Miss Anisia Shepard. Good evening, Anisia.
Good afternoon.
Your topic, it is time to move away from traditional forms of tourism. It is time to move away from traditional forms of tourism. You may begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anisia Shepard, and to reiterate, my topic is, it is time to move away from traditional forms of tourism. But of course not. Let's take Antigua and Barbuda, for instance. Firstly, Antigua and Barbuda, we all know that our main industry is tourism. We use it to bring in income for the country so that we can thrive. And imagine if we couldn't have our sandy beaches and our hotels and our hot climate and all of our attractions like Nelson's Dockyard for all of our tourists to come and see and to enjoy. We would severely impact from this because we need it. It positively affects us. It gives us income for the country. It's so that we can continue to provide for our country. Secondly, when you think about it, it works. So why are we changing it? Without this, our country can negatively be impacted as well. We wouldn't have enough income or anything like that to provide for our country and our citizens because we need tourism. Tourism works for us. And I don't believe that we should change it because, well, as you may see, tourism all over the country in the Caribbean is well known, and I believe that if it isn't broken, then we shouldn't fix it. I think that we should stay with traditional forms of tourism, and we should continue to work with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anisia. And Anisia made her presentation in a time of 1 minute and 46 seconds.
Anisia, your question is, do you think tourism alone will be able to provide the country with the necessary funds to build and maintain the economy? Once again, do you think that tourism alone will be able to provide the country with the necessary funds to build and maintain the economy?
Well, of course not. Though tourism may be our main industry, I don't believe that it would be able to provide for the whole country. Obviously, we have our workers paying taxes, which would further help to provide for our country's health and welfare. And so, no, tourism cannot provide everything, but it is certainly a main factor.
Thank you, Anisia.
Thank you.
We will now move to our next speaker from the Trinity Academy. Please welcome Esteban Feliz.
Ladies and gentlemen, the topic that I have been chosen to speak on today is churches have little to no influence in society. Ever since the church has formed a pillar of Western civilization since memory permits. The church has been a pillar of Western civilization since the Christianization of Rome up until the modern day, and sticking true to Caribbean colonial history. The church has formed the bedrock of Caribbean society, but that is being challenged. It is being challenged by modernization, 21st century modernization, and the secularization of the education spheres and society at large. With the fall of grace of the church in Caribbean society, we see two distinct camps forming in our midst. We see traditionalists who seek to restore the church to its former glory, who give more and more of their salaries to tithes. And we have the modernists on the other side, those who want to do away with colonial oppression, burn the plantation and its tools, as it were. We see the rise of dogmatism because of this. Now, what do I see in the future? As the church limps along and it loses its prestige in society, what will replace it is consumerism and the knowledge that without a spiritual juggernaut at the head of Caribbean society, there will only be corporations and there will only be the ever-present dollar. Thank you.
Esteban made his presentation in a time of 1 minute and 52 seconds, speaking on the topic, churches have little to no influence in society.
Hello, Esteban. And your question, what can the church do to regain its influence on society? I'll repeat, what can the church do to regain its influence on society?
Well, my personal opinion is that the church can look to attract youths or the younger generation towards the church and its activities to kind of bolster or boost its popularity within the younger generations and stop it from dying out, as it were. That's my answer.
Thank you, Esteban. We now move to our next speaker from the Irene B. Williams Secondary. Kindly welcome Diego Bascom. Good afternoon, Diego.
Good afternoon.
Your topic, what more can be done to address mental health in Antigua and Barbuda? What more can be done to address mental health in Antigua and Barbuda? You may begin.
In Antigua and Barbuda, we have an institute for the mental ill people. That is Clearview. What Antigua and Barbuda can do to address the mental health issues in Antigua and Barbuda is to improve their rehabilitation strategy. If we know that Clearview collects the patient and they just have them locked up in their whole day. If I was going crazy, I don't want to be locked up. It's just going to make me go crazier. What they can do is to hire psychologists to come and educate the clients, find out what causes them to become mentally ill, suggest strategies as to what they can do to improve their mental health issues, and so on and so forth. Because they can even carry them on boot camps to correct their behavior. I don't want to be locked up if I was mentally ill. And secondly, the Antigua and Barbuda Trade Labor Union and the government needs to come and hire people to go to the workplace, go to the different secondary and primary schools to educate people about the mental health, what leads to it, and how can we prevent becoming mentally ill. And on the radio, you see the KFC and the Flow and the Bakery Fresh and the Eat Fried Chicken. We don't need that anymore. We don't know about mental health. But what we don't know about the KFC and where I can go. KFC, I love your chicken, but we need to focus on mental health issues, bringing awareness. We can have a day where everybody wear a mental health t-shirt and we can bring awareness to it. So in conclusion, what can we do? What can be done to address mental health issues in Antigua and Barbuda? One, to improve their rehabilitation strategy, that is to educate our patients more instead of having them locked up. And two, they need to put KFC and other media aside and address our mental health in primary and secondary schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Diego. Diego completed his presentation in a time of 2 minutes and 12 seconds. We will now await the judge's question.
Diego, your question is, in Antigua and Barbuda, do you think mental health is one of the many problems that often goes overlooked? Give a reason for your answer. Once again, in Antigua and Barbuda, do you think mental health is one of the many problems that often goes overlooked? Give a reason for your answer.
Yes, I agree that in Antigua and Barbuda, mental health is one of many problems that is being overlooked. Simply because we are the country, and on the radio and in different secondary schools and primary schools, we're not being educated about mental health, how to prepare, how to get better or how to prevent yourself from going under that category. Instead, on the radio, we're just getting different advertisements about different things, and we're not being informed. And as a citizen of Antigua and Barbuda, I don't feel like if I'm being educated enough about my mental health. I'm just hearing about KFC and Flow and Digicel. Thank you.
We now move to our final speaker in this, our semi-final round, and she is from the Trinity Academy. Kindly welcome Miss Esther McKenzie. Good evening, Esther.
Good evening.
Your topic: how can we tackle the rising suicide rates among young people in Antigua and Barbuda? How can we tackle the rising suicide rates among young people in Antigua and Barbuda? You may begin.
How can we tackle the rising suicide rates among young people in Antigua and Barbuda? Firstly, I will begin by defining the term suicide. Suicide can be defined as taking your own life. The causes of suicide are numerous, but this evening I would only go into three. Three causes of suicide would include depression. Depression can be defined as prolonged stress. If you're depressed, causes of depression would actually be, for example, you may not get the grades that you truly desire. We know that CXC is quickly approaching, and then if we might probably sit some exams that we really cannot pass, and if we actually fail them, then that will send us into depression because we'll be stressing about the fact that we can't get into certain universities or colleges because we didn't get these subjects. Another cause of depression would be drug abuse. Last year, we can see that drug abuse actually took one life within Antigua and Barbuda, where the sister of the young man actually came out to speak to young people about why they shouldn't take drugs, because she insisted that was the reason why her brother took his own life, because he was abusing drugs. And another cause of suicide would be because people are not accepted by society or their peers because of their social statuses and their race. For example, in schools within Antigua and Barbuda, we know that certain groups of students cannot be a part of certain groups of students simply because they're whites, or because they're too rich, or because they're too poor. And effects of these causes would include simply taking their own lives, or they would actually inspire other people to take their own lives. Because if it works for me, then it could work for you too. Why not? And how can we tackle the rising suicide rates among young people in Antigua and Barbuda? The answer is simply this. The Ministry of Education can implement counselors in schools to actually, for students to be able to speak to about their problems, and these counselors can encourage students to not take their own lives. The Ministry of Culture could use the teen event that's coming up this carnival to actually speak to children about the importance of their life and that their lives have a purpose. And the Ministry of Social Transformation could actually host forums with parents for signs that they should look for in their children if they are actively trying to commit suicide. For example, slitting their own wrist or abusing medicines. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. And Esther made her presentation in a time of 2 minutes and 59 seconds. We now await the judge's question.
Good day, Esther. Your question: do you believe that social media is a contributing factor in suicide? Why or why not? I'll repeat. Do you believe that social media is a contributing factor in suicide? Why or why not?
Personally, I believe that social media is not a contributing factor to suicide. We actually have people utilizing the media to bring awareness to suicide and to actually educate youths of the importance of basically living, that to tell them that their life actually has a purpose.
Thank you, Esther. And please applaud all our participants for their efforts this evening. Who will be the top 3 advancing to the finals? Please stay with us, and you'll find out after these words from our sponsor, Caribbean Union Bank.
Our parents have always supported our career choices and assisted us to live it with CUB student. Whoa!
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying with us. We are now ready to hear from our judges, and this evening, making the presentation on behalf of our panel is Mr. Kadeem Joseph. Kindly welcome him.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming this evening and being a part of this, what I would want to call an auspicious occasion. Quite often, we don't have young people who are engaged in discussions on issues affecting our lives, all of our lives, not just young lives, but all of our lives. So thank you all for coming, and I'd like to give you a round of applause for being so diligent in your presentations this evening. Now, I know you all are excited to know who the finalists are, but before we get there, I want to give you some pointers from the head table, from the judges' table, and I'll start with some of the things that we think you should improve upon, and then we'll end with the great things that we think you have nailed this evening, so that we can end on a good note, if you'll allow me. Firstly, we thought that some of our participants spent too much time defining the terms and spent too much time setting parameters. It didn't give you enough time to respond effectively to the topics or mood that you were given today, and that sometimes can be a problem when it comes to time management. Our speakers as well sometimes were not making use of the time that they were given to respond to the questions posed to them effectively as well as not making adequate use of the time that they had to present their general or overall responses to the mood that they were presented. Fluency and fidgeting. Now, it is difficult sometimes to think off the top of your head and to present in front of an audience. However, in these sort of settings, it requires the individual who's presenting to make a mistake and recover immediately and be poised and enthused to continue. And I'm sure, and this perhaps would be a great case in point for me as a judge, as someone who speaks often. I have a speech impediment, and often I make mistakes. But I think the forgiving part is I'm confident enough to continue on, and that's what I want all of you to take away from today. You will make mistakes when you are an oral presenter, when you are put in front of an audience, but the great thing about being good presenters or good speakers is falling down, recovering, and continuing. And that should be demonstrated not just in this competition, but throughout your entire life. And finally, for some speakers, in settings like this once more, we ask you to have a wide-ranging understanding of topics that affect our daily lives, which requires you to listen to the news, to engage in discussions with your contemporaries, to speak to your parents about the issues affecting our daily lives. And when you're given a random topic, the only way you can respond effectively is if you have the content to back up what you're speaking about. And to get that content, you need to listen to the news. You need to do your research, to read about every and anything, so that in your place in front of an audience, if you want to talk about spaceships, you may not know about spaceships, but you can speak about the outskirts of spaceships, speak about physics and aerodynamics and all the other things you may know about that would help you to respond effectively to the topic that you're given. Now, for the great points that we have pointed out this afternoon, there was an excellent command of the English language. We found that the presenters this evening presented well. You were fluent in most cases, and you also stayed away from many of the grammatical pitfalls that we often fall into. So that was excellent. Many of you showed that you were well-read. You had an excellent ability to command the attention of not only the judges, but those who were seated in the room, and we appreciated that. As well, there was great composure during the question segment. Now, you're not only being asked to present on an impromptu topic, which you had 3 minutes to prepare for, but now you're being asked a question which is a wild card, and you had no idea what that question would have been. And we found that you did an excellent job in responding in quick time to those questions. So you all deserve a round of applause. We'd also like to say a special thank you to those students who came out today and posed the questions to our competitors. Excellent questions. I know we jeered with you during the breaks to get those questions out quickly, but excellent job, and I hope to see you in the future on stages like this one or anywhere else presenting yourself, so thank you so very much for that as well. Now, for the moment you've been waiting for, the top 3 individuals who will be advancing to the finals. Firstly, we have Mr. Esteban Feliz. He represents the Trinity Academy, and he amassed a total of 138 points. Secondly, we have Kiwana Farrell. She represents the Antigua Girls High School, and she amassed a total of 133 points. And in third place, we have Mr. Diego Bascom. He represents the Irene B. Williams Secondary School, and he amassed a total of 128 points. So once again, on behalf of the judging panel, I say congratulations to all of you gathered here today, and to those finalists, I hope that you prepare for the finals and we come ready to engage in another week of competition. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. And Please applaud our panel of judges for so ably adjudicating this evening's encounter. I also wish to congratulate the representatives from the Trinity Academy, the Antigua Girls High School, and the Irene B. Williams for advancing to the finals, and to offer my profound gratitude to the other participants who did an exceptional job this evening. It may be the end of your journey, but we hope that this is not the end, that you'll continue to practice and that you will avail yourself to utilize platforms such as this to improve your craft, because you are doing an exceptional job. So, we are at the end of this evening's semi-final round. We look forward to have you join us for our finals, where the Trinity Academy, the Antigua Girls High School, and the Irene B. Williams will all compete for the position of the top Impromptu Speaker 2022. Until then, do enjoy your evening.
With my busy schedule, a CUB debit and credit card is a must. It makes my life much easier and one less thing I have to worry about.